This is Thinking Clearly, where political extremes meet the common sense center.
Welcome. Today I wanted to try something a little bit different and not do a scripted video that's just on one topic. Instead, I thought I would come to you in a more casual way, and I wanted to just talk about a few different topics and just touch on a few things that I think are of concern today, and maybe how we can address them in the future, and maybe how I can cover them on this channel going forward. YouTube has not been showing my long videos, but they have been showing my short ones, and I'm hoping maybe this will also help move the algorithm a little bit. As a few months ago, I was getting thousands of views on my long videos, and now they're barely showing them to even 50 people. Yet the shorts are being shown nicely, and they're just parts of the long, so I don't know what they're doing. But maybe changing this format a little bit might just help. We're in a big mess, as we all know. There's no question about it. And there we go. I'm trying to get the microphone not to look so weird. As we all know, we're in a big mess, and the worst mess we've ever found ourselves in. I'm not talking about the biggest foe we've ever faced or the biggest financial mess we've ever had to dig ourselves out of. I'm talking about the biggest malfunctioning of our government ever. We sit and watch the dismantling of our government and our government institutions being destroyed every single day after day, and nobody is doing anything about it. We've always had a two-party system, and that system there's always been animosity between the two parties, which is what it's designed for. And except for the first 220 years of this country, which takes us only back about 30 years or so, things worked pretty well. There were times that it didn't work so well. There were times that things went a little bit to the right, or drifted to the right more. There were times they drifted to the left more. But we got along, we got legislation done, and we weren't in a situation like we are now, where everybody's just at everybody's throats and nothing's getting done, nothing's coming out of Congress. Our government is completely ineffective, and it's not doing anybody any good at this point. So I want to use the rest of this video delving into just a bunch of pieces about that, and and try to understand what's going on. Starting in the 1990s is where I go back and I see we can draw a solid line from Newt Gingrich in 1996 taking over the Congress to the absolutists today like Jim Jordan and Tom Cotton, who don't compromise for anything. And it's been this last 30 years that we've seen things just go off the rails. It was never like this before. And then yet we, the rational, that's what this channel is, rational Americans in the center. Doesn't matter if you're center right or center left. The point is that we're center versus the far left or far right. Represent the majority of Americans. And it's time that we put down our feet and tell all the sides that this is enough's enough. This is not okay anymore. And we have got to make changes and get back to a functioning country again. We want our country back, and we deserve a functioning federal government. Let's be clear. Trump didn't create this mess. America had serious problems before Trump. No question about it. And because of Trump, the problems have become even worse. And when he leaves, they're going to be even worse. He used his celebrity status playing a billionaire on TV for 14 years to get elected. He understands how to manipulate people, and he clearly recognized the angers Americans had with politicians, and he exploited it. But what he has done since has made many, many of those problems substantially worse. Most Americans absolutely have no idea the deep and long-term damage that he did with Elon Musk and DOGE last year. They went in last year and they went across the government into all the agencies, and a lot of them you never even heard of, and fired people and kicked out staff And this extends all the way. This is from the State Department to intelligence to military, the public health, science and research, and many more agencies. And they just cut and they just fired people, many people, experts in their fields, in agriculture, in public science, public health, State Department, maybe somebody that was an expert on Iran or China. And they got fired. Maybe they had 25, 30, 35 years of deep, deep experience in their expertise. And they were just tossed out with 10 days' notice. And this is going to affect America long term. There's no way it can't. The cuts were too broad. Too many people were thrown out. Too much expertise has been lost. And you have to ask yourself, why did they do that? What about it? I mean, USAID, most of those programs were not even pennies. They were partial pennies relative to the budget of the U.S. economy and the U.S. budget. I mean, they were just tiny. $1 million, even 25 or 50 or $100 million program is nothing compared to our $1 trillion, of debt and our multi-trillion dollar GDP. So you have to ask yourself, what are they doing? What's the purpose for what they did there? It's not about cutting funding. It's not about, and it certainly isn't about raising money to offset the tax cuts that he gave the billionaires, because you're talking about peanuts against $1,000 on the other side. So what's the purpose of this? What are they really up to? What is it that Musk and Trump and all these people really want out of this? And who are they working for? Because this sure as hell is not good for America. This doesn't make America any stronger. As a matter of fact, it weakened us, and will weaken us now for as far out as we can see. Then you have to ask yourself, over the last 30 years, where have the Democrats been? Trump has dominated American politics since 2015 when he came down his golden escalator. It's been 11 years since he did that. Since then, where is the permanent Democratic war room? Why don't we see a permanent, well-funded group of the smartest political, economic, communications, and policy minds in our country in some type of group? How has that not been formed over the last 11 years? I don't understand this. The smartest and the brightest and the richest, I don't understand. We've put together all sorts of government agencies and all sorts of outside government groups to study and keep track and do these things. Yet the Democrats haven't done it internally or externally. There's absolutely nothing going on. There's nobody out there. Nothing. There's no group out there that was put together and funded well to merely attack Trump or to develop better ideas for Americans, to counter MAGA, to counter Project 2025, to explain what's happening before it happened. The opposition party has failed to oppose. And honestly, this is malpractice by the Democratic Party. I mean, real malpractice. No different than a surgeon that took out your lung instead of your kidney. I mean, this is really bad. The Democrats still haven't defined what they even stand for. I have no idea what they stand for in 2026 and what they're going to stand for in 2028 when the next election comes up for president. I know what the Republicans stand for. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. They just are supporting the billionaires and the tax cuts and giving them everything and bastardizing our country and taking away services and health care and everything else in this country and just making themselves richer and richer every day. But what do we stand for? All I ever hear about are the loud voices on the extreme far left, and people like AOC, people like this newly elected El Sayed, Mandami, and they're all saying the same thing. They're all talking socialism. They're all talking communism. They're all talking about changing our system. What we're not hearing from, and we're not hearing is from the moderates or even the progressives that are not on the super far left, talking about how we can change our existing world, our existing style of government. We don't want to become a socialist country. We don't want to become a communist country. That's not the answer. And it's nothing I'm going to support. And it's nothing the other centrists are going to support. And I don't care if they're Democrats or Republicans. They're not going to support this. What we want is we want a government that works. We want capitalism with rules. So those rules have to be brought back, because that's part of the problem that we've had since the 1990s, is the GOP has continually gotten rid of the rules. And corporations have been allowed to do more and more and more on their own. And, there's so many examples of this. You can't even go to a meat processing plant. You can't go to a farm where animals are killed and filmed. That's all illegal now throughout America. You probably didn't even know that. Because the corporations have so much power in this country now. They get this legislation done, both federally and in the states, to all for their benefit, of course. And most people aren't even aware of what's going on with this. These are the types of things that need to be reversed. This is the type of legislation that we need to bring back to the public and say, hey, did you know about this? We have to fight this. We have got to get government that works again, affordable health care and housing. But that doesn't mean the implementing DEI, which was a lightning rod from the beginning. I never understood how they could be putting so much time and effort into DEI when that was such a lightning rod. That wasn't ever going to get attention from the right. You were never going to meet in the middle and get anything done with the Republicans with DEI. That was simply putting up a middle finger to the Republicans and saying, hey, we're going to go with this program that looks like this, and we know it's absolutely against what you stand for. It's not how you get things done. You have to find things that you can work together on, that maybe you can meet in the middle and form a program and form legislation and get it through so everybody, so things get better in this country. You might not get everything you want, but you don't start out with these crazy programs that that they're going to hate on the one side or the other. And these have been the loudest voices, unfortunately, pulling us, to the far left. I never understood that. And even, the amount of people that Biden left in the borders, it's insane. That's not where most people are, including Democrats. And certainly not the center Democrats. So we have a real problem. We have 30 years of an out-of-control GOP, and we have 30 years of a non-existent Democratic Party, that's become weaker and weaker and non-existent, certainly the last 10 years. You had Trump out of office since 2021. You had 4 years of Biden in office. That was the perfect time to start putting things together to fight Trump for a return. And what happened? Nada. Absolutely nothing happened. None of the organizations I've talked about, none of the advisory groups were put together. There's been absolutely no effort whatsoever to fight what's going on. Then you look at what happened, in this last fall, and we saw near riots on our university campuses. We heard nothing from the Democrats. We heard, where's their moral voice? We heard some people standing up for the Palestinians, but not standing against this anti-Semitism that we were seeing all over the place. Nobody was calling it out. Where's the party on anti-Semitism? This is their job. This is where they need to stand up and say, no, this is not okay. And you know what? A lot of that anti-Semitism was not coming from the GOP. It was coming from within the DNC, within the Democratic Party. And this is a real problem. And again, it's just another area of failure for the Democratic Party, and nobody's picking up the mantle and saying, no, this is not good. We have to call out intolerance. That's always been the role of the Democratic Party through and through history. That's been the role. That was our role in World War II. That was what Roosevelt did. Putting together the social programs. That's what 1964 and LJ Lyndon Baines Johnson, LBGJ, his programs. It was all about helping the poor, helping the outsider. And here, Because they're Jews, we don't hear a word. But it doesn't stay. Anti-Semitism doesn't stay with Jews. It moves on to the next group, and then it moves on to the next group, and then it moves on to the next group. Nobody is safe from what effectively is anti-Semitism. And again, we've got to call that out. But again, we're not hearing anybody on the left fighting it. Then to be fair, you have on the far right, you have idiots like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, and they're blatantly, loudly spewing their anti-Semitism on air daily, which is just disgusting. And what's interesting, I don't know if you've ever heard of something called the horseshoe effect, and that's where the far, far left and the far, far right, usually the socialists and the communists, align because they end up agreeing, on these extremes. So you have Tucker Carlson, who last week announced he may form a third party, and and there's a lot of talk now about he may run for president as a alternative candidate. Talking about he wants to become the real MAGA of MAGA, and believing completely in isolationism. We shouldn't fight any foreign war. I mean, which is absolutely ridiculous. You cannot be a totally isolationist country. Might as well just shut down our economy. You might as well just shut down all our agreements with the world and our relationships with Europe and everything else, because it's not what America is. And we're not looking to shut down everything. That's not what MAGA was about. MAGA was never to say, we're not here to protect American interests. MAGA was saying, we don't want to enter into unnecessary foreign wars. And there is a difference in that. And there is a difference between what I just said and what Tucker is calling for. And Tucker is a very dangerous man because he has so much power and so many people follow him. And it's exactly what we've been hearing from him, is authoritarian control of things and isolationism and anti-corporate, anti-globalist, which is really the same stuff that you hear on the left of anti-authoritarian control and anti-intervention. It's really the same thing, just wrapped up in two different gift wraps. Anyway, I just have one more thing I want to touch on, and then we'll call it a day. And that is the distribution right now of the Democratic Party is 52% of the party is 50 years or older, and 48% of the party is 49. 48% of the party is 49 or younger, with 17% of the party being 29 or younger, and 31% of the party being between the ages of 30 and 49. So you have these younger folks who really have never experienced, they didn't live through the Soviet Union. Even the second group of 30 to 49-year-olds, unless they were 46 or older, they don't really remember the Soviet Union because, they were 10 years old when that happened. If you were 10 years old, you don't really remember things earlier about foreign affairs at that point. So these people don't have regular knowledge of what happened and what they saw. I mean, I can tell stories of being in Europe when the wall fell and seeing people from the East and how different they were and how bad we all know communism and socialism is, and that we've never had a socialistic state or a communist state not end up with a dictator, because that's just the facts and just how awful it is. I was talking to somebody on Reddit today, obviously a very young person, who was grifting me basically about how the Soviet Union was so wonderful and the Holodomor, the starvation of Ukraine really wasn't a planned thing, and all sorts of nonsense, because these young people want to buy into these other plans, and I don't blame them. I mean, we've left them a terrible world right now. They can't afford to buy a new house. They're stuck with tons of debt from their education, and they can't even do half as much as we did at their age. So I don't blame them if they're angry, but the answers that they're looking for in a different type of system is not the answer, and we know that. Anyway, I just wanted to bring a new style today to to the video, and maybe we'll do this again someday, or even do a live question and answer. But I wanted to just talk to you about that and say, if you're coming here for far left content, this is not where you're going to find it. You're going to find center stuff here, center left, center right, and you're going to find common sense here, because a lot of this stuff, even if it's centered, doesn't make sense a lot of the times. And you have to approach this with a pragmatic, realistic idea and position. And you have to have had some experience in this, which I do, going back 30, 40 years. And I've seen how these things work. And hopefully we can get this country back on track with your help and my help, and we can get other people involved. Hopefully we can do it and not watch this country just collapse even further. Thank you very much. Please like and subscribe and tell your friends and family about this channel. And that's how we grow, and I really appreciate it. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you.